Welcome back. You're watching RT International. RT's bank in the UK has given notice that it will close all our accounts without giving any explanation. Here's the official statement we received from the bank.
We have recently undertaken a review of your banking arrangements with us and reached the conclusion that we will no longer provide these facilities. Our decision is final, and we are not prepared to enter into any discussion in relation to it.
RT's editor-in-chief, Margarita Simonian, called the move politically motivated, saying the channel's activity in Britain has been checked many times and is absolutely transparent.
This decision came absolutely unexpectedly. We didn't get any warrants or anything of the kind. The bank just sent us a letter saying that as of today, they have taken a decision to stop all the work with us, and we will not be able to use basically anything and to do anything with that bank. The bank didn't explain anything. In the letter, they stated that they are not in a position to discuss this matter any further. Our lawyers are dealing with it. We are looking for some other options and other ways to continue our operations in the UK, and hopefully this will be the end of this extremely unexpected and unusual situation, although to me it seems like it's only a start of it.
Now, Russia's foreign ministry said Moscow will demand an explanation from London over the closure of RT's bank accounts in the UK. RT's Anastasia Turkina has more on the story.
Short, sweet, brief, informing RT that the relationship is over. And we have to keep in mind that this was a relationship that lasted over 10 years. RT was a client of NatWest for over a decade, and yet now, in such an abrupt manner, the bank has informed the channel that it will be terminating its relationship. Specifically, the letter is dated October 12th, and it does say that RT's accounts will be cancelled and closed by December 12th. So there is a 2-month notice for RT to find what the letter calls, quote, alternative banking arrangements. Now, this is something that, of course, has caused quite a stir, not just here in the UK, but internationally, with lots of media reaction. And we have to make it quite clear that it's not just RT who have reached out to NatWest for commentary, for any kind of explanation, that they said the reason is final, but will not be discussed. But it's in fact been other media outlets who have been asking and requesting commentary and statements from the bank to figure out what exactly happened and why this had to occur, but are yet to get some kind of reaction. We have heard a reaction, quite some fiery statements from Russia's foreign ministry spokesperson. Let's take a listen.
It seems when the UK decided to leave the EU, they also left all of their freedom of speech obligations there. Looks like they're leaving all bad habits behind.
Well, of course, all of this is leaving lots and lots of questions opened about the true motives of this decision, about how this eventually will end up affecting, if at all, the way RT operates here in the UK. It has to be made clear that the questions are arising mostly about whether or not this is something that involves this particular bank, or whether this will be something that has more wider consequences. But RT has made it quite clear that RT UK will continue operating uninterrupted, and that RT as a network is looking into further steps it's going to take to be able to continue functioning just the way it has, uninterrupted.
I see Turkina there. Well, the UK government says the decision by the bank to withdraw its services is a matter for the bank alone. Well, to discuss this further, I'm now joined in the studio by Ilya Petrenko. So, yeah, what else do we hear from London?
Hi again, Marina. Well, after so much anti-Russian buzz lately, threats of sanctions, fears that they're imminent, the UK's Treasury was asked if the decision to close those bank accounts, if those were the financial measures that we recently heard about. And the answer was no, that it has nothing to do with the anti-Russian sanctions, although the general UK government attitude towards RT has been quite hostile always. RT has been demonized, and there's even been an inquiry in the House of Commons into how to deal with RT and how to deal with this perceived threat of the Russian propaganda.
Media outlets such as the state-owned Russia Today and Sputnik, a Russian press agency operating in major foreign cities, have been used to spreading propaganda. We are concerned that the UK and NATO do not yet have a fully developed strategy to counter Russian propaganda and disinformation effectively.
If we go back to just a couple of years ago when RT UK was getting ready to go on air, we were going to launch an ad campaign. We came up with several posters, and the message to our potential viewer was, what happens when there's no second opinion? What was on those posters were former UK and US leaders, Tony Blair and George W. Bush, and just some figures about the Iraq War. But that was branded as propaganda and never made it to the streets of the UK because of, quote, its political undertones.
So as we can see, it's seen some hostility there. But let's speak about RT's image in general in the West. What has it been like? How is it portrayed?
Well, it's no secret that since RT's launched, a number of major news organizations in the West have repeatedly insinuated that our channel is a weapon being wielded by Russia in an information war against the West, branding it things like Putin's on-air machine or Kremlin's propaganda tools. Now, speaking of some of the more extreme assessments, there was a proposed report in the European Parliament that likened the threat of RT's activity to the threat posed by Islamic State propaganda. So let's just go through some of the more comments by Western officials that weren't perhaps as aggressive, but still were quite hostile.
Propaganda war launched by Putin against West, against democracy, against all of us. Ideas they pick up from Russia Today and other channels.
Very aggressive propaganda.
How do we handle new forms of disinformation and propaganda which came from Russia?
Well, again, we hear some hostile rhetoric there. Ilya, thanks so much, though, for talking to us and bringing us this update. Ilya Petrenko there. And we continue talking about this story now. I'm joined by David Coburn, UKIP member of Parliament. Thank you so much for joining us, sir. And so far, there has been no comment from NatWest, and RT isn't the only media outlet that's been asking. So why are they refusing to explain themselves? What are your thoughts?
Well, it's a very good question. I mean, UKIP believe in freedom of speech and diversity in the media. A lot of questions should be asked about what their motives are. They don't particularly like differences of opinion. Many of the merchant banks and various others, including the Bank of England, poured money into the Remain side in the referendum, whereas UKIP, you know, we got airtime from RT when some of the other organisations did not. And in the past, when we were building our party, we could get time on RT which we couldn't get on the BBC, or on ITV. So, you know, we believe in diversity in the media, and I think RT add to that, and they give a different perspective. If you look at what's going on in Syria, we're back, or at least France and the US are backing one side, which is possibly fundamentalist in nature, whereas at least the Russians are backing. I don't think President Assad is a fabulous fellow by any manner of means, but the thing is, he did run a secular government with protection for minorities, and at the moment we seem to be backing some people who may end up giving us some sort of fundamentalist government in Syria, which is unwise. Now, all RT are doing are asking that question. Now, we believe in diversity in the media. We want to hear other people's points of view, and I think it's wrong to stop that, and one has to ask questions. What is the meaning of this? Also, we're out leaving the European Union. We want to build relationships with Russia in terms of business. What sort of message does this send out to Russian business? You know, if we sort of freeze bank accounts without giving reasons, this is ridiculous. This is very, very bad for Britain and bad for Russia. We should be working with the Russians against medievalist, fundamentalist Islam, which is wrong. And we must deal with that. We should be working with them and not against them.
Well, certainly, Mr. Coburn, at this point, there are indeed a lot of questions and, in fact, more questions than answers. Thanks so much for
one thing I
talking
can
to
say
us.
is it's jingoistic Russophobia, I think, very bad. And, I think that, Russia is no longer a communist country. We must make friends with the Russians. We must work with the Russians.
It's
we have
very
a common
interesting
enemy
to talk to you, Mr. Coburn,
medievalist
but unfortunately, we're running out of time, so we have to leave it there. I'd like to thank you, though, for giving us your thoughts and your points of view here. That was David Coburn, UKIP MEP. And coming up on RT, our special report on the families coming to terms with relatives killed by ISIL simply for being Christian. Just stay with us.